You're on.
Good morning. Happy Monday. Thanks everybody for joining us today at the Santa Clarita Birth Center. Hey, we're going to briefly talk about postpartum depression. It's a really super hot topic. There's a lot of people that experience it. 80% of women in the postpartum period will have some form of postpartum depression. And so we're going to talk about it today given the current state of America. Many people are living in a really high stress state right now. The tragic shooting that we just experienced in Florida has really stirred up a lot of stuff. That one of many, many things that has stirred up a lot of stuff, and it's awful and tragic, and it's shining, people are really focusing on mental health right now, and not to get into the political situation of gun control, but talking about mental health and postpartum depression is really important. And it's a topic that's not really widely discussed in the birth community. I mean, it's starting to get talked about a little bit, but I just want to uncover some things that are important to know. Postpartum depression is prevalent. And many of us, you would never know, are experiencing it or have experienced it because we present really put together. So I'll just share a little bit of my personal story with my first son, who is 21. And I had severe postpartum depression that was undiagnosed. I didn't share with anyone that I was having it. My postpartum depression was so severe, it bordered on psychosis, postpartum psychosis. And I didn't share because I didn't know what I was experiencing was abnormal, which is insane in and of itself, that I didn't think my behavior was abnormal. I didn't recognize that I could get help for it. I didn't know who to get help from. 21 years ago, we didn't have the internet. How old do I sound? We didn't have our smartphones. We didn't have cell phones. At least those of us that were like normal everyday people didn't have cell phones. There were people that were walking around with a cell phone, but I was not one of them. I was living in an apartment in Sherman Oaks with one car. My husband was waiting tables, and I was home with this baby and didn't have a cell phone. Internet didn't exist. There was certainly no social media. I did have a midwife. I had a wonderful midwife, and I had a very positive birth experience. Even though it wasn't the birth experience I had planned on. I was from a birth center transported to a hospital. It went down a different path than I thought it would, and I had a vaginal delivery. And I didn't feel particularly traumatized by my birth. I didn't feel particularly traumatized about having this baby. I was super happy to have this baby. I planned on having this baby. I was really healthy. I had a good social structure. I was, and still am a fairly A-type personality, high achiever, get a lot done. I can accomplish a lot. So I had this baby and I was like, yeah, this is great. I know how to do this. I was breastfeeding. I looked like I had it all together. And what would happen for me, well, one, there was an event that happened when my son was about 4 weeks old or five weeks old maybe. A very dear friend of mine had a tragic car accident and died suddenly in this car accident. And I remember getting the news of this while I was holding my baby, and it really rattled me. Of course, she was a good friend of mine, and shocking and tragic. And that event triggered my postpartum, what I believe is postpartum psychosis. The difference, my understanding, I am not a specialist in postpartum and perinatal mood disorders, but my understanding is that the difference between postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Depression is we have these feelings, we have these anxieties, yet we can move through the day and sort of not let them completely disrupt our behavior. So my situation was at night, I became very fearful of the dark. My husband worked at night, and my husband would go to work, and the sun would start to set, and I would go into a very extreme state of anxiety, And I became fearful that the baby would be possessed by the devil if I left my bedroom at night. And so I would, as the sun started to set, I would retreat into my bedroom. Remember, no cell phones, no social media. I would retreat into my bedroom with the baby, and I could not open my bedroom door and walk outside of my bedroom for fear that the baby would be possessed by the devil. And the difference again now between psychosis, my understanding between psychosis and depression is I couldn't move through my fear. Whereas my understanding is if I had postpartum depression, I would acknowledge this isn't real. You need to open up the door. You need to go get some food. You need to call a friend. You need to get outside of your bedroom door. But I was so debilitated by my extreme anxiety that I couldn't open the bedroom door. I actually could not move through that fear. And so I would stay in my bedroom, no food, because I would never plan on going into my bedroom. And so ultimately I would wind up retreating into the bedroom, no food, no water, no phone, because at the time we had landline phones, right? And I wouldn't bring the portable phone. I'm pretty sure we had a portable, but I remember being in my bedroom and not having the phone and hearing the phone ringing outside in the living room, but being unable to open the door and go get the phone. That's how trapped I was with this fear. And so I had no food, no water. I wouldn't answer the phone. I wouldn't answer the door. One time my husband was concerned about me and had the apartment manager check on me because I wasn't answering the phone, and he was knocking at my front door, and I couldn't open my bedroom door to get to the front door, which is so extreme, right? You would think that I would acknowledge, being a fairly intelligent woman, I would acknowledge I was having some severe postpartum depression and that I would seek help. But what would happen is the sun would come up in the morning and I would feel better. And I would go, whew, wow, that's weird. I feel much better. I'm sure that's not going to happen again. It was like Groundhog's Day. And I would get up in the morning and I would feel like, oh, I feel great. I'm not anxious. I feel fine. And I'm breastfeeding my baby and I'm doing my thing. And now I'm going to like Gymboree and I'm socializing with friends and I'm having this great day. And like, I'm so glad that's over. I feel so much better today. Wow, that was such a weird thing that happened last night. And then the sun would set and I would wind up back in my bedroom. And I did this day after day after day for about 4 weeks. And then I realized, like, finally, something's not right here. I shouldn't be trapped in my bedroom every single night. And so I went away. I had the opportunity to go on a trip with a family member. And I went out of town with the baby. And I never wanted to hurt the baby. I breastfed the baby. I loved the baby. So I didn't think that what I was experiencing was related to postpartum or the baby. I just thought I was seriously just concerned that the baby, I just really thought the baby might be possessed by the devil. Like, it was really rational to me. I was raised as a Catholic and the baby hadn't been baptized yet. And I just rationalized these feelings. And I actually went back to visit my family. Boy, this wasn't my intention today. It was to talk about my postpartum psychosis. But here I go. So I went back to New York, convinced that if I just got the baby baptized, that if I just got the baby baptized, it would be better. And thankfully, I spoke to a pastor, and he wouldn't do it. He said, "This is not a magic elixir. You have postpartum depression, and you need to be seen by somebody." And I was like, wow, if you just do the thing and baptize the baby, I won't have this feeling anymore. And he didn't, because I wasn't choosing to baptize my baby for actual religious reasons, biblical beliefs, biblical truths about baptism and what that means. I just thought it would heal me. And And so therefore he wouldn't do it. And he said that he was very concerned about my mental health. And I didn't really, I listened to him, but I didn't do anything about it. I decided to just go on a vacation to Hawaii, which was awesome. I went on a trip. I left my, my husband was like, great, go on this vacation with the baby and go have a great time. And then I wasn't alone for about a week. I was with somebody 24/7. And so I sort of got over it. In my mind, when I got back from Hawaii, it was all better. I wasn't depressed anymore. I never really knew what it was, and I just didn't think anything of it. And I just thought, oh, well, that was weird. Boy, I feel so much better. And then I had a second baby, and I had some awareness at that point that, oh my gosh, I might have this again. And I didn't. I didn't have it the second time. I took precautions the second time where I didn't, and this is what I encourage all of our people that are listening to this right now that might be suffering from some kind of psychosis or depression. What I did differently the second time was I told myself I didn't have to do anything for 6 weeks. I didn't have to prove to everyone that I was going to be a good mom. I didn't have to get everything done. I didn't have to be attached to my to-do list. I didn't have to do the laundry. It was okay if the laundry piled up. It's really deep stuff, but you've got to be able, it's really important that in this postpartum period, and that might be a year, it's okay not to be a highly functioning A-type personality and go right back to work and get everything done and put it together and, present really well. It's not important. And so my second time, I decided that I was going to do the 40 days in the home. I wasn't going to have any obligations. I made sure I had support for my older child. My husband loved me, still loves me, which is amazing. We're 25 years, we're almost married. And I'm a little bit cuckoo, but my husband keeps up with me. Anyway, he was very supportive. My family members were very supportive. I made sure that for the first 6 weeks of my second baby's life, that I had support in place. I had good food. I had, like I said, support. I had the ability to rest. I was breastfeeding my baby. I had a home birth. Where I birthed doesn't really, that didn't pertain to whether I had postpartum depression or not, because like I said, my first birth wasn't traumatizing to me. And I truly believe that. I mean, so I lined these things up, and for me, it was really helpful just to let go of the need to do everything right, and to talk more about it, and to be more open about how I was feeling in that postpartum period. So I'm just saying to everyone, look, we all go through trauma. It's a really intense time right now in our country. There's a lot of trauma everywhere. Everybody's on edge. And it's important to rest. This weekend, I had a it's been, we've had a really busy year, and we all get to a place sometimes where we need to decompress. So I encourage you all, if you're having any kind of insomnia postpartum, insomnia is a sign of postpartum depression. Anxiety, like possession, baby's going to be possessed by the devil. Not really real. Fear of being shot. Fear of being in a car accident. These irrational fears that maybe we obsess about over and over. It's just playing over and over in our head. And we think, gosh, I can't believe I can't get this idea out of my head. I know it's not real, but I still can't get it out of my head. You need to speak to somebody. We can support you with, we have resources for you. There's some nutritional support you can do. A lot of people believe consuming your placenta is one component of perinatal mood disorder. There's no research. There's no current actual data that supports that. But it's a ritual that makes some women feel better. And so we talk about that here, the difference between the evidence behind it and the ritual behind it. But we'll talk and help you try to figure out who's the right person to support you through this time. But it's real. 80% of women will have some form of this. You might look at somebody that saw me during the day, they would never in a million years think I had postpartum depression or psychosis, because I was, I had it all together in my mind. My very, very dear friend once said to me, we're all a little bit crazy. It's just how much of your crazy shows. And I remember when she said that to me, I was like, well, not a lot of my crazy shows. And she said, actually, a lot of you crazy shows. And so maybe a lot of my crazy did show, and in my mind it wasn't showing, but nobody ever actually addressed it except for this pastor that very straightforward addressed it with me. And then I later did go on to get some support in that area and some therapy around that, and which was really helpful. So the big takeaway from today, besides this whole weird thing that I just experienced, because I wasn't expecting to talk about my own psychosis nor my personal experience, but get help, get support, plan it before your baby is born, get a meal train set up. Who are your people? Who are the people? Who are your friends that will sit near you no matter what you look like, no matter how much of a mess you think you are? Who's really going to sit by you? I can tell you it's not most likely all of your friends on Facebook or all of your Instagram followers. Who are the real people that are going to sit by your bed and come when you're under the covers with breast milk all over you, mascara maybe under your eyes, your hair looks terrible, and you're a mess? Who are you going to let into your room? Find those people. Figure out who those people are before you have your baby, so that you're on some kind of text message grouping thing to say, hey, I need some help. Who's the person that's going to drop everything at, right in the middle of the afternoon and come and sit by your side? Those are the people that you need. Talk to your healthcare provider. Bring it up at all of your postpartum visits. Even if your provider doesn't ask, bring it up. Say, hey, I'm having some anxiety about X, Y, and Z. Just want to run it by you. Is this normal? Is this not normal? Make sure you're well supported with food, and that you're getting some rest. And if you're not resting, again, bring that up to your healthcare provider, because that can trigger depression. Insomnia is a really significant thing in the postpartum period. So there you go. That's what we have for today. We will post some resources under here about some links you can go to and get some support. You can always call the birth center, the SCV Birth Center, talk to your healthcare provider. There's so many resources out there. There's all kinds of support that we can connect you to. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that for today, you, if you've just had a baby or you're about to have a baby, that you heed some of these recommendations that we have. We posted something on Instagram last week about some just bullet points. We wrote a blog on this. It's on our website. So there you go. On that note, I'm going to go have a cup of tea and blow my nose. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining us. Bye.